Hello everyone. I just figured I posted my deck list for making Mythic, or not making Mythic, but making top 1000 Mythic with Bolas' Citadel. There's a bunch of questions on it, so I figured I'd answer all the questions here on a video rather than individually, just because Twitter, has not a lot of space or whatever. But anyway, real quick, I guess, like video deck tech, I guess. What you have before you on the screen is my first rendition with the deck. With the WotC gave a lot of the streamers a free preview account, and with the free preview account, I got to play with all of the cards. So some of the cards here I don't have, but during that free preview via WotC, Wizards of the Coast, I did get to experiment with a lot of different decks, and Bolas' Citadel was a card that I definitely wanted to try out. So I did try out a few different versions of Bolas' Citadel, and this was one of them. This is like the exploration, like Wildgrowth Walker, I guess like package that you want to call it, or like basically how the deck works is you play Bolas' Citadel. You can look at the top card of your library at any time. You may play with the top card, or you may play the top card of your library, but instead of paying mana, you pay play life, right? So obviously this gets pretty taxing pretty quickly if you don't have a way to gain life. So the way that you get around this is you play Wildgrowth Walker and a bunch of explore creatures, and you end up gaining 3 life every time you cast a spell. Another way to kind of get around this is Path of Discovery, which makes it so that every single creature that you play is going to explore, which means that every single creature you play gains 3 life via Wildgrowth Walker. So basically you have to have Wildgrowth Walker in play for this deck to kind of work and function the way that you'd want it to. And once you have a Wildgrowth Walker in play, you could basically play every single one of your creatures as every creature in your deck costs 3 or less. So you're paying 3 or less life. So it's either even on life or you're gaining life to play the creature after you pay the initial cost. And then multiple instances of Wildgrowth Walker help out the combo. So if you have 2 of these in play and you play a creature, say like Jadelight Ranger, you're going to gain, 3, or in Jadelight Ranger's case, it's going to be 3 times 4, which is 12 life for the low cost of 3 life to play it. My problem that I had with this deck is originally I wanted Zhang Yang Gu to be able to turn on Incubation Druid very quickly, so you could play like turn 4 Bolas' Citadels pretty easily. You could do the same with Wayward Swordtooth and Llanowar Elves, so I just wanted to power out Bolas' Citadel as fast as possible. And what became apparent to me very quickly is that this deck didn't have a lot of interaction. So if your opponent was just killing all of your creatures, then you were kind of just stuck in a rut. Like you were just like, okay, well, I was this green deck that wasn't very good, and then like I need Bolas' Citadel to get going, and if I don't get Bolas' Citadel, then I die. So then I kept playing around with it a little bit, went back to the drawing board, watched some of my videos on me playing the deck versus people and all that stuff. Played a few more games with it. Played, I don't know, maybe another 7 or 8 matches with it on while I still had the free preview account, and then after the free preview account, I went back to it and played another 7 matches. Went 1-6 with a deck similar to this one with a little bit more interaction, some Ravenous Chupacabras and stuff like that. And then eventually I ended up, discard these changes. I'm going to go ahead and delete this because this is not my list. I ended up here. And while the numbers kind of look a little funky, I'm trying to figure out exactly how many non-permanent answers I can have in the deck, or non-permanent cards I can have in the deck, mostly because of Bond of Flourishing. So this was one of the big pickups for the deck. Bond of Flourishing, you can look at the top 3 cards of your library, you may reveal a permanent card from among them and put it into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order, and then you gain 3 life. So it's another one of those cards where you're going to gain more life than it costs with Bolas' Citadel is out, but you can also play it beforehand to find Bolas' Citadel. And along with that and all the explore creatures, so Merfolk Branchwalker, Jadelight Ranger, Seekers Squire, you get to see a lot of your deck while you're just playing your normal stuff. So I was able to cut down on the number of Bolas' Citadel. Now, some people go, well, this is a Citadel combo deck. Why would you cut Bolas' Citadel? It's the namesake of the deck. but I wanted a deck that functioned more as a deck and then had Bolas' Citadel as like a backup plan. And while it is still the #1 plan, it is kind of like the plan that you do after your opponent deals with your board. So Wildgrowth Walker, Merfolk Branchwalker, Jadelight Ranger, these are tried, true, tested. Like, people will have played this since they came out in Standard, and it's been a very good package. Along with those, Wayward Swordtooth gets online pretty quickly, and then to add to like the kind of like beefy creatures that you're playing in the beginning, even though they like don't start off as beefy, they become beefy. God-Eternal Rhonas is like kind of like just like another huge threat, but it makes your Jadelight Rangers, your Wayward Swordtooths, Merfolk Branchwalkers, all that stuff, like basically makes them very, very formidable in combat once you get that going. And then using kind of like the Explore package, I put in a couple of cards that are also just like very good on their own. Liliana, Dreadhorde General, is one of the best cards to come out of this new set with War of the Spark, and she's just been stellar every single time I played her. And then for my 2 removal spots, I'm choosing Vraska's Contempt. This could be Ravenous Chupacabra. I'm still playing around with the numbers a little bit, but I wanted this for the Phoenix deck, or like for Arclight Phoenix, not Arclight Phoenix, Rekindling Phoenix. Sorry, I just got done watching Modern. For like Rekindling Phoenix, so then I wanted 2 of them in the 75, and I just like put 1 in the main deck and have 1 slotted in the sideboard. And then I'm testing Finale to Eternity, or Finality of Eternity. Basically because it's usually a 3-for-1 and it's pretty quick to get out with your Llanowar Elf and Wayward Swordtooth. So, I mean, even against something like White Weenie, you could play it for 5 and kill 3 of their creatures pretty easily. That way, this could be fine Finality, but I felt like with how much mana this deck produces quickly, the X equals 10 isn't that far out. But it might actually become one card that I just included, which is Command the Dreadhorde. Command the Dreadhorde was an addition from one of my teammates, and basically he was talking about the combination between Command the Dreadhorde and Samut, Tyrant Smasher, which gives all your creatures haste, and you could just like play Command the Dreadhorde, get back like 3 or 4 creatures plus Samut, and like, yeah, that does cost a lot of your life, right? Because like these definitely have a cost. You're like already paying 4 life, maybe 7 life, or whatever. But if you're not dead when you when the spell resolves, then you're going to gain a lot of it back with Wildgrowth Walker and all the triggers that come into play. So basically, just like giving me more ways to play outside of just Bolas' Citadel. And then the other thing is that when you play Bolas' Citadel, a lot of the times you run into the second one, and sometimes it's not a problem because you're looking for a second one because you want to sacrifice 10 permanents with the other Bolas' Citadel in the stack, so you can sacrifice essentially 20 permanents and then kill your opponent from 20. What I found out with the old versions where they were playing 4 Bolas' Citadel is that you never really needed the second Bolas' Citadel to kill your opponent from 20. And the reason why is like the deck attacks pretty well, but the other thing is like there's so many board states where you're just like, yeah, I can make you lose 10 life, and then I can find another Bolas' Citadel, maybe, and maybe I can kill you there. What ended up happening was like I was just like passing the turn with this like humongous board, like this board of like 8, 9, 10, 12, 15 creatures, and then just like passing the turn, threatening the Bolas' Citadel of loss of 10 life, but also like not having to sack the Citadel, so I could just go again next turn, even if they cast something like Kaya's Wrath or something like that. So unless and you were usually not dead because you're already going off with Wildgrowth Walker, so you don't really have to worry about that. So yeah, that's just kind of like really quick over the main deck. Like I said, wanted more interaction than just like comboing killing people, and then also just like wanted a good deck on the backup. If I was to make any changes, currently the things I want to test is a second Samut and a second Command the Dreadhorde. Kind of try to do like a combo with maybe like God-Eternal Rhonas, Samut, Command the Dreadhorde, and just like kill your opponent in one swing with like haste, so that you have like kind of like a combo kill that's not just the Citadel. And it also allows you to mill more aggressively with your Seekers Squires and your Merfolk Branchwalkers, because a lot of the times you're just looking for lands, to be honest. And then to do that, I'd probably cut the Finale to Eternity and maybe even the Vraska's Contempt. Possibly the second God Eternal, because usually the second one's kind of not unneeded, but also the second one's kind of just like you're just like looking for one. And like I said, the deck goes through so much. And then even with Samut, I don't even know how often you will need the Eternal God just to like kill your opponent. A lot of the times you'll just have enough power anyway. And then quickly going to the sideboard. So some of you were asking how you sideboard against most matchups, or like a lot of the matchups in the format. Basically, just going through it. There's a few changes that I should make. I think it's Obnixilis. Yeah, Obnixilis' Cruelty should probably be in here over maybe the second finale, although maybe the finale stays in the sideboard if I take out the one in the main. Could be even over Davriel. Davriel's kind of been lackluster in this deck, even though I think the card is very good, and maybe even just cutting a cast down. But I think Obnixilis' Cruelty should be in this deck, just because there's a lot of cards that you can't cast down, like Niv Mizzet, for instance, Lyra, and like the Rekindling Phoenix, stuff like that. So I'm probably going to cut at least one cast down, but I think it's important to have the cast down available to you, because one of the cards that is the hardest for this deck to beat is Llanowar Guard, and Llanowar Guard, one of the best answers is cast down. Assassin's Trophy, I like having this, the one of, it's kind of like flexible between, you can play this against your Esper control decks, and you can play it against your mono red aggro decks. It's just like a good answer to everything. So I like having this. Basically, let's see, I guess it'd probably be easiest to look at it like this. Basically, the way that I sideboard is that I assume that people are going to find ways to either counter this or disrupt Citadel or Bolas' Citadel, so I usually try to become more of a functional deck. So I add higher impact stuff to the main deck, and take out cards that are bad to draw later in the game. So you're just becoming more of like a Jund good stuff deck. So against for instance Esper Control, I would cut stuff like Llanowar Elves. Maybe I would shave on Seekers Squire. So maybe it's like cut all the Llanowar Elves, cut some of the Seekers Squires, and maybe even the Samuts, because they have so much spot removal that Samut just like doesn't get to like target with a Scry or whatever. And then obviously the Finale to Eternity is not good against them, because you're not going to be killing any of their creatures. And then I would add cards like Vivien Reid, Vraska's Contempt, Davriel, the Duresses, and the Assassin's Trophy in that matchup. And then that way you have like a very good Explore package along with just like very, very powerful cards, and you get to dig those powerful cards and you try to like overwhelm them with just haymakers after your like Merfolk Branchwalkers and your Jadelight Rangers and such. For something like Mono Red, which is on the other side of the spectrum, your Citadel gets bad because they're putting you at a low life total. So it's hard to pay the life once Citadel's in play because you're at such a low life total. So I like to cut all of these, and then in that case I would bring in like the Moment of Craving, the cast downs. If Cruelty's there, I'd bring in Cruelty as well. And then it kind of becomes your choice. If you think they're going to slow down, you can even play cards like Vivien Reid, which isn't my favorite, but you do need to have answers to Experimental Frenzy, and then but you definitely would just like want removal. The normal stuff like Wildgrowth Walker is still very good against them. Bond of Flourishing is still pretty good. Gains life, finds like an impactful spell. You can cut cards like Wayward Swordtooth, but you just become like a green beatdown deck. Liliana is still very good in that matchup, I found, because like she allows you to have a one card, I don't want to call it a combo, but just like one card that like goes over the top after you trade a lot of your resources away. And then if you're just going for like mid-range stuff, it's similar to like, your normal mid-range stuff. You just like want cards that are impactful. So once again, your Vivien Reids, your Finales, your Vraska's Contempts, just that type of stuff is like what you're going to want in like your mid-range matchups. And you can shave on cards like Llanowar Elf because the game goes a little longer. It doesn't have as much impact. But in those cases, you're not going to cut your Bolas' Citadel. And then finally, everybody's been asking, how is this deck against the Wilderness Reclamation Nexus of Fate decks? To be honest, I haven't played against it a ton. I've only played it against it like two or three times now. But I've won every single one of those matches. And the way that you beat those is you do have Assassin's Trophy, which definitely helps. You have Vivien Reid, which helps. Davriel's pretty decent against it, and you Duress. So basically what you want to do is you want to combo a kill as fast as possible while still being disruptive, and the path to that is basically you're going to cut all of your creature interaction spells, so your finales, your Vraska's Contempts, and then you're going to go ahead and cut, what did I cut? Oh, and then I also cut Liliana. Because they're like more of like a Turbo Fog deck, you're not going to gain a lot of value out of Liliana. And then what you're going to do is you're going to like try to set up where you can play Bolas as Citadel, and then you're just going to try to like Duress them 3 or 4 times the same turn. I mean, I should say not 3 or 4 times, but like 2 or 3 times when you get the Citadel into play. And you can usually do that because you can fire through your deck as fast as possible and then make it so that you can kill them the turn after you land the Citadel. This is the only matchup where I'd like a 3rd Citadel probably, just to make sure that I have it. But you do have cards like Vivien Reid, which is tough for them because like you get to kill both Search for Azcanta or Wilderness Reclamation. You also have like Assassin's Trophy. Like I said, Davriel is very good against them. It's kind of like another Duress because by the time you get Bolas of Citadel, they don't have a lot of non-land cards in hand because they've used, like things like the green-blue draw card, drop a land into play, stuff like that. So they usually don't have excess cards to discard at that point. So yeah, anyway, I've been having a blast with this deck. Like I said, I'm going to work on it some more. But I figured I would answer some of those questions that you all had. And I felt like this was the easiest way because instead of writing 10 responses on Twitter, I could just answer everything with one video. So hope you enjoyed this deck. If you want to give it a try, I definitely would advise just like playing the deck like it's an aggressive green deck. So don't be afraid to trade resources. Make sure that you keep yourself alive. Understand when you're the aggro. If you're the aggro, just push, 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 push. And if you're not the aggro, obviously, just like trade on defense because eventually you're going to outdraw every single person or every single deck outside of like the mirror match basically or the Wilderness Reclamation decks. So, and don't be afraid to experiment. Like I definitely don't think that this is necessarily the best version of the deck. Otherwise, I wouldn't still be experimenting with the cards. But I will say that I think this is the way that I would push where the deck goes. I've seen a lot of like Path to Discoveries. Like I said, I started there. And it felt like it wasn't super needed. I didn't need that much life gain. So many of the cards gain you life anyway once Wildgrowth Walker is in play. I felt like Wildgrowth Walker Path of Discovery was just like a little too much. Most of the time I still gain a ton of life anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But anyway, thank you all for watching, and yeah, I mean, as I continue this, might put more of these videos, probably put some like of me playing the deck, and then I'll also be streaming it. So if you don't know, I stream on twitch.tv/ConanHawk most weekdays, so definitely check that out if you're interested in this deck, because I'll be doing this one as well. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.